With the rise of television and demise of the studio system, Hollywood movies lost the power to pull people to cinema halls, and the industry was dying a slow death. Then arose a slew of charismatic young filmmakers who took control as directors and started making films that appealed to the new generation of audience. One of the groundbreaking directors amongst them was Steven Spielberg, and this video is about his life story. Steven Allen Spielberg was born on December 18, 1946, in Cincinnati, Ohio, in a Jewish neighborhood. His mother, Leah, was a pianist, and his father, Arnold, was an electrical engineer who served as an Army radio man in the Second World War. The family shifted to Phoenix, Arizona, where Steven studied at a Jewish school. The Arcadia suburb where they lived was very much like the setting of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, with its ranch houses and its freshly poured sidewalks and streets. So good for bicycling. Steven's father wanted to inculcate a scientific aptitude in him with the study of math and science, but young Steven was dreamy and artistic. His free-spirited mother, with her storytelling skills, brought creativity and fun into the household and whetted Steven's curious nature. According to Spielberg, it was a Peter Pan atmosphere. He admitted, "I always felt like the boy from Neverland. It had been very hard for me to grow up." The atmosphere at home shaped his powerful imagination and the ability to boldly see the world as a fantasy. His vivid imagination was later seen in his science fiction movies. Young Steven feared darkness and saw spooky shadows on the walls. To overcome his fears, he would bully others by telling scary stories. This penchant of storytelling, along with his love for movies and television, was the seed that later made him the fabled director. He used his father's 8mm movie camera to film his surroundings. He made his first home movie at the age of 12. He used his toy train to revolve the plot around a train wreck. Throughout his early teens and after entering high school, Spielberg continued to make amateur 8mm adventure films, including The Last Gunfight, which was a requirement for a photography merit badge. Spielberg recalls about it fondly, "My dad's still camera was broken, so I asked the scoutmaster if I could tell a story with my father's movie camera. He said yes, and I got an idea to do a Western. I made it and got my merit badge. That was how it all started." In 1962, he made a 40-minute war movie, Escape to Nowhere, casting his high school friends. It won first prize at a film festival. This was his big achievement and a motivation to up his game. Encouraged by the feedback, he decided to make a feature-length film and directed the sci-fi movie Firelight in 1964. His childhood imaginations had now started playing up on the screen. Before Steven graduated from school, his parents divorced. But the emotional turmoil couldn't hold Steven from going after his dreams. He moved to LA where he wanted to join film school at the University of Southern California, but his application was rejected. He enrolled in Brooklyn Community College. He was looking for ways to sneak back into Hollywood. An unpaid internship at Universal Studios' editing department got his foot in the door. He was later given the opportunity to write and direct a short film for theatrical release, the 26-minute Amblin. Studio Vice President Sidney Scheinberg was impressed by the film, which had won a number of awards, and offered Steven a 7-year directing contract. It made him the youngest director ever to be signed for a long-term deal with a major Hollywood studio. He subsequently dropped out of college to begin professionally directing TV productions with Universal. There was no stopping Steven. He soon got his first professional TV job directing a segment for the 1969 pilot episode of Night Gallery starring Joan Crawford. Crawford detested the idea of being directed by a 21-year-old newcomer, but she started accepting him as the work progressed. She later recalled, "When I began to work with Steven, I understood everything. It was immediately obvious to me, and probably everyone else, that here was a young genius. I thought maybe more experience was important, but then I thought of all those experienced directors who didn't have Steven's intuitive inspiration, and who just kept repeating the same old routine performances. That was called experience. I knew then that Steven Spielberg had a brilliant future ahead of him. Hollywood doesn't always recognize talent, but Steven's was not going to be overlooked. I told him so in a note I wrote him. I wrote to Rod Serling, too. I was so grateful that he had approved Steven as the director. I told him he had been totally right." Steven moved from strength to strength. His 1971 debut TV movie Duel got him significant recognition and enabled him to make theatrically released motion pictures with known actors. He made Sugarland Express in 1974, a tragic comedy starring Goldie Hawn. Being a baby boomer himself, he connected well with the generation that made the bulk of movie-going audiences in the 70s. His work caught the admiration of top studio bosses Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown. They took a chance on him, offering him to direct an ambitious project, the horror thriller movie Jaws. The film was big budget, and the scale of production was overwhelming for Spielberg. It came to the verge of being shut down due to production delays and over-budgeting, but Spielberg persevered through the grueling shoot to complete the film. The film turned out to be a marvel of cinema and an enormous hit. It broke domestic box office records and grossed $470 million worldwide, and won 3 Oscars. It made Steven Spielberg a household name and one of the youngest multimillionaires in America. His sense of drama and the art of scaring the audience with anticipation, as seen in Jaws, amazed everyone. Steven Spielberg had arrived. Jaws made Spielberg a Hollywood powerhouse overnight and brought directing offers from big studios. His next critical and commercial hit was the film about UFOs, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which won 6 Academy Awards and the first Best Director nomination for Spielberg. In the 80s, he collaborated with another new wave director, George Lucas, to make the first Indiana Jones movie that later developed into a celebrated franchise. He then made iconic films like E.T. and Jurassic Park that revolutionized the way films were made and seen. Spielberg was a pioneer and was never afraid of experimenting. After reaching the pinnacle in direction, he ventured into production and co-founded Amblin Entertainment and DreamWorks Pictures. Spielberg became the most popular director in the film industry. He made films in all genres, including sci-fi, drama, action, and horror, with some of the biggest Hollywood stars. The world was awestruck with his larger-than-life images on the screen. His shot selection and portrayal of human emotions are a class for budding filmmakers. He made close-up shots and long takes his own. The latter is now famous among cinematography enthusiasts as the Spielberg Oneer. He won 2 Best Director Academy Awards for the poignant Holocaust drama Schindler's List and the epic war film Saving Private Ryan. The daydreaming child from Ohio became the most popular filmmaker that ever lived. Well, that was the story of the iconic director Steven Spielberg. Who else do you think are some of the other great film directors of the 20th century? Let us know your views in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for the latest updates.